Bullies throw new kid's bag in trash. Big mistake. He's an unstoppable Sambo fighter. MC Menor do Grajaú walked through the gates of Colegio Estadual Dom Pedro II with his head down, clutching the straps of his worn backpack like a lifeline. At 17, he was shorter than most boys his age, with a lean frame that made him look younger than he actually was. His dark hair fell across his forehead, partially hiding the nervous expression that seemed permanently etched on his face. The thick-rimmed glasses perched on his nose completed the picture of someone who screamed "easy target" to anyone looking for trouble. This was his third school in 2 years. His mother's job as a cleaning lady meant they moved frequently, chasing better opportunities that never seemed to materialize. Each new school brought the same challenges: being the outsider, the quiet kid who didn't fit in, the one who ate lunch alone and walked the hallways like a ghost. What none of his new classmates knew was that MC Menor had spent the last 5 years training in Sambo, a brutal Russian martial art that combined wrestling, judo, and street fighting techniques. His grandfather, a former military man who had learned the art during his service, had been his teacher. But his grandfather was gone now, and MC Menor had promised his mother he would never fight at school. She had enough problems without having to deal with calls from principals about her son getting into trouble. The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete courtyard as students gathered in their usual cliques. MC Menor tried to navigate through the crowd unnoticed, but his luck ran out before he even reached the main building. "Well, well, what do we have here?" The voice belonged to Rafael Santos, a stocky 18-year-old with arms covered in amateur tattoos and a reputation for making new students' lives miserable. He stood flanked by his 2 constant companions, Diego, a tall, lanky boy with dead eyes and a cruel smile, and Marcos, whose bulk made him look more like a bouncer than a high school student. MC Menor kept walking, hoping to avoid confrontation on his very first day, but Rafael wasn't the type to let an opportunity slip by. "Hey, I'm talking to you, Four Eyes," Rafael called out, stepping directly into MC Menor's path. "Didn't your mother teach you manners?" The mention of his mother made MC Menor's jaw clench, but he forced himself to remain calm. Not worth it, he told himself. Just get through the day. "Sorry," MC Menor mumbled, trying to step around the trio. "I'm just trying to get to class." Diego laughed, a harsh sound that drew the attention of nearby students. "Look at this guy, acting all polite. What's your name, new boy?" "MC Menor," he replied quietly, immediately regretting giving his real name instead of making something up. "MC Menor?" Marcos repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. "What kind of stupid name is that? Sounds like some wannabe rapper." The growing crowd of onlookers began to murmur and snicker. MC Menor felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he kept his eyes fixed on the ground. He had learned from experience that engaging with bullies only made things worse. "Cat got your tongue, MC?" Rafael taunted, emphasizing the name with exaggerated pronunciation. "Or are you too scared to talk to us? Just walk away," MC Menor told himself. "Don't give them what they want." He tried to move past them again, but Rafael grabbed his backpack and yanked him backward. The sudden motion sent MC Menor stumbling, and his glasses slipped down his nose. "Where do you think you're going?" Rafael demanded. "We're not done talking to you." The bell rang, signaling the start of first period, and the crowd began to disperse. But Rafael and his friends showed no signs of letting MC Menor go. "Please," MC Menor said, adjusting his glasses. "I don't want any trouble. I just want to go to class." "Trouble?" Diego grinned. "Who said anything about trouble? We're just being friendly, welcoming the new kid." They finally let him go, but not before Rafael delivered a parting shot. "See you around, MC, real soon." The rest of the morning passed without incident, but MC Menor could feel eyes on him wherever he went. Word had already spread about the new kid who had been welcomed by Raphael's crew. Teachers droned on about subjects he had covered at his previous schools, and he found himself staring out windows, wishing he could be anywhere else. Lunch period arrived like a storm cloud on the horizon. MC Mena had hoped to find a quiet corner in the library, but it was closed for maintenance. The cafeteria was his only option, and he approached it with the same enthusiasm one might have for walking into a lion's den. The cafeteria was a chaos of noise and movement. Students clustered around tables, their conversations creating a constant buzz that filled the large space. MC Menor grabbed a tray and got in line, keeping his head down and hoping to remain invisible. He should have known better. "Well, look who decided to join us for lunch." Raphael's voice cut through the ambient noise like a knife. He appeared at MC Mena's elbow, flanked as always by Diego and Marcos. "How's your first day going, MC?" "Fine," MC Menor replied curtly, moving forward in the line. "Just fine," Diego chimed in. "That doesn't sound very enthusiastic. Maybe we need to help you have more fun." MC Menor reached the front of the line and quickly grabbed a sandwich and a carton of milk. He paid the cashier and turned to find a seat, but his path was blocked by Marcos's considerable bulk. "Where are you going, new boy?" Marcos asked with false concern. "You can't eat alone on your first day. That would be rude." "I'm fine eating alone," MC Menor said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Nonsense," Raphael declared, grabbing MC Menor's arm. "You're sitting with us." They steered him toward a table in the center of the cafeteria, where their presence would be noticed by as many people as possible. MC Menor had no choice but to comply, his tray clutched tightly in his hands. "So, MC," Raphael began once they were seated, "tell us about yourself. Where'd you come from?" "Around," MC Menor replied vaguely, unwrapping his sandwich. "Around?" Diego laughed. "That's specific. What's the matter? Ashamed of where you're from?" MC Menor took a bite of his sandwich, chewing slowly to buy himself time. He could feel the attention of nearby tables focused on their conversation. "Maybe he's from the favela," Marcos suggested with a cruel grin. "That would explain the weird name and the second-hand clothes." The comment hit closer to home than MC Menor would have liked, but he forced himself not to react. His family wasn't wealthy, and his clothes were indeed second-hand, but there was no shame in that. His mother worked hard to provide for them. "Is that it, MC?" Raphael pressed. "You from the slums." "Does it matter?" MC Menor asked quietly. "Oh, it talks back," Diego said with mock surprise. "I was starting to think you were mute." The conversation continued in this vein for several more minutes, with the three bullies taking turns making increasingly personal and offensive comments. MC Menor endured it all in silence, mechanically eating his sandwich and counting the minutes until lunch period ended. Finally, the bell rang, and MC Menor stood to leave. But as he picked up his tray, Raphael accidentally bumped into him, sending the remains of his lunch scattering across the floor. "Oops," Raphael said with exaggerated innocence. "Sorry about that, MC. Guess you'll have to clean that up." MC Mena stared at the mess on the floor, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Around him, students laughed and pointed. He could feel his face burning with humiliation, but he forced himself to kneel down and begin picking up the scattered food. "That's right," Diego said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Good boy. Clean up your mess." As MC Menor gathered the last of the debris, he caught sight of Raphael's sneaker moving toward his hand. At the last second, he pulled back, avoiding being stepped on. Raphael's foot came down hard on empty floor, and he stumbled slightly. "Careful there, Raphael," MC Menor said quietly, standing up with his tray. "Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself." For a moment, Raphael's mask of casual cruelty slipped, replaced by something darker. But then he smiled again, though it didn't reach his eyes. "See you later, MC," he said. "Count on it." The afternoon classes passed in a blur of anxiety and anticipation. MC Menor couldn't concentrate on anything the teachers were saying. His mind kept replaying the lunch incident, and he found himself unconsciously flexing his hands, feeling the calluses his grandfather's training had left on his knuckles. "Don't fight," he reminded himself. "Mom has enough problems." But even as he repeated the mantra, he could feel something stirring inside him, a familiar feeling he had worked hard to suppress. The same feeling that had gotten him in trouble at his last school, and the one before that. The final bell rang, and MC Menor gathered his things quickly, hoping to escape before Raphael and his crew could corner him again. He made it to his locker without incident and was shoving books into his backpack when he heard familiar voices approaching. "There he is," Diego's voice carried down the hallway. "Our new best friend." MC Menor slammed his locker shut and turned to face them. The hallway was mostly empty now, with only a few stragglers heading toward the exits. No witnesses, no teachers, no one to intervene. "What do you want?" MC Menor asked, shouldering his backpack. "Just wanted to make sure you found everything okay," Raphael said with false concern. "First days can be so confusing." "I'm fine," MC Menor replied, starting to walk toward the exit. But Marcos stepped into his path again, and this time there was no pretense of friendliness. "Actually," Raphael said, his voice dropping its fake warmth, "we've been thinking. You seem to have an attitude problem, MC. Acting all superior, like you're better than us." "I never said that," MC Menor protested. "You didn't have to," Diego added. "It's written all over your face, the way you look at us, like we're beneath you." MC Menor shook his head. "That's not true. I just want to be left alone." "Left alone?" Raphael laughed harshly. "That's not how it works here, new boy. You want to be part of this school, you show respect. And respect means knowing your place." "Which is?" MC Menor asked, though he already knew the answer. "At the bottom," Marcos said with a grin, "where all the freaks and losers belong." They were backing him toward the far end of the hallway now, away from the main exit and any potential help. MC Menor's heart was pounding, but not from fear. It was the familiar rush he felt before a fight, the same feeling his grandfather had taught him to harness and control. "Not yet," he told himself. "Give them a chance to back down." "Look," MC Menor said, raising his hands in a peaceful gesture. "I don't want any trouble. Can't we just agree to stay out of each other's way?" "Stay out of each other's way," Raphael repeated mockingly. "You think this is some kind of negotiation? You think you have a choice in the matter?" They had reached the end of the hallway now, near the janitor's closet and a large trash bin. The symbolism wasn't lost on MC Menor. "Here's how this works," Raphael continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Every day, you're going to show us the respect we deserve. You're going to do what we tell you to do when we tell you to do it. And if you don't..." He let the threat hang in the air. "And if I refuse?" MC Menor asked quietly. Raphael's smile turned predatory. "Then we make your life hell. We make sure everyone in this school knows exactly what kind of loser you are. We make sure you have no friends, no peace, no place to hide." MC Menor felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had heard these words before, at other schools, from other bullies. The script was always the same. "So, what's it going to be, MC?" Diego asked. "Are you going to be smart about this, or do we need to teach you a lesson?" MC Menor looked at each of them in turn. Raphael, the leader, drunk on his own power. Diego, cruel and empty behind his dead eyes. Marcos, big and stupid and eager for violence. They were predators, and they had marked him as prey. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had no idea who they were dealing with. "I think," MC Menor said slowly, "you should walk away. Right now, before this goes somewhere you don't want it to go." The three bullies exchanged glances, then burst into laughter. "Did you hear that?" Raphael gasped between laughs. "He's threatening us. The little nerd is actually threatening us. That's rich, Diego added. What are you going to do, MC? Bore us to death with your homework? Or maybe he'll cry, Marco suggested. I bet he's a crier. MC Menor felt the last of his restraint beginning to fray. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. Sambo is not just about fighting, boy. It's about knowing when to fight and when to walk away. But when you must fight, you fight to win. Last chance, MC Menor said quietly. Walk away. Instead of backing down, Raphael stepped closer, invading MC Menor's personal space. Or what? He demanded. What exactly are you going to do about it, you pathetic little... The insult died on his lips as he found himself staring into MC Menor's eyes. Something had changed. The nervous, frightened boy from earlier was gone, replaced by someone else entirely, someone dangerous. But Raphael was too proud and too stupid to recognize the warning signs. You know what? He said, reaching for MC Menor's backpack. I think your bag looks like trash. Maybe it belongs in the trash. He grabbed the backpack and yanked it off MC Menor's shoulders. Inside were all of MC Menor's school supplies, his notebooks, his textbooks, and most importantly, a small photo of his grandfather in his military uniform. It was one of the few things he had left of the old man. No, MC Menor said, his voice barely above a whisper. Give it back. Give it back, Raphael mocked, holding the backpack over the large trash bin. What's the magic word? Please, MC Menor said, hating himself for the word even as it left his mouth. Please give it back. I don't think you mean it, Diego said with a grin. Maybe you should get on your knees and beg. Yeah, Marcos added, beg like the dog you are. MC Menor felt something snap inside him, the careful control his grandfather had taught him, the promise he had made to his mother, the fear of getting in trouble. All of it crumbled in an instant. Give it back, he said, each word sharp as a blade. Raphael's response was to turn the backpack upside down and shake it over the trash bin. Books, papers, pens, and pencils rained down into the garbage. But it was the small photo that broke MC Menor's heart. He watched his grandfather's face disappear into the refuse, and something inside him died, and something else was born. Oops, Raphael said with mock innocence. Looks like your stuff is trash after all. MC Menor stared at the bin for a long moment, his hands trembling with rage. When he looked up, his eyes held a coldness that made even Marcos take a step back. You made a mistake, MC Menor said quietly. Yeah? Raphael challenged, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. What mistake is that? You should have left my grandfather's photo alone. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What happened next would be talked about at Colegio Estadual Dom Pedro II for years to come. MC Menor moved with a speed and precision that caught all three bullies completely off guard. His grandfather's training, dormant for months, exploded into action like a dam bursting. He stepped forward and grabbed Raphael's wrist in a grip that made the bigger boy cry out in pain. Before Raphael could react, MC Menor twisted his arm behind his back in a perfect Sambo arm lock and drove him face first into the wall. What the hell? Diego started to say, but his words were cut off as MC Menor spun and swept his legs out from under him. Diego hit the floor hard, the impact driving the air from his lungs. Marcos, the biggest of the three, finally overcame his shock and lunged forward with a wild haymaker. MC Menor ducked under the punch and came up inside Marcos's guard, his elbow driving into the bigger boy's solar plexus. As Marcos doubled over, gasping for breath, MC Menor grabbed him by the shirt and used his own momentum to throw him over his hip in a textbook Sambo throw. Marcos hit the floor with a crash that echoed through the empty hallway. The entire exchange had taken less than 10 seconds. Raphael, still pressed against the wall with his arm twisted behind his back, tried to struggle free. MC Menor applied more pressure, and Raphael screamed. "Stop!" Raphael gasped. "You're breaking my arm!" Am I? MC Menor asked conversationally. I hadn't noticed. Diego was trying to get back to his feet, but MC Menor kicked his legs out from under him again, sending him sprawling. Stay down, MC Menor advised, unless you want to join your friend against the wall. Marcos was still on the floor, clutching his ribs and trying to breathe. The throw had knocked the fight out of him completely. Now, MC Menor said, his voice calm and controlled, let's talk about respect. He increased the pressure on Raphael's arm, eliciting another scream. You see, Raphael, respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn, and right now you haven't earned anything except my contempt. Please, Raphael whimpered, let me go. I'm sorry. Sorry? MC Menor repeated. Sorry for what exactly? For everything. For bothering you. For throwing your stuff away. For being a coward who picks on people smaller than himself? MC Menor suggested. For being a pathetic bully who gets his kicks from humiliating others? Raphael nodded frantically. Yes, all of that. I'm sorry. Please, just let me go. MC Menor looked down at Diego, who was still on the floor but no longer trying to get up. What about you, Diego? Do you have anything to say? Diego shook his head quickly. No, I mean yes, I'm sorry too. We won't bother you again. And you, Marcos? MC Menor asked, glancing at the big boy who was still struggling to breathe properly. Marcos managed a weak nod. Sorry, he gasped. MC Menor held Raphael against the wall for a few more seconds, then released him with a shove that sent him stumbling across the hallway. Raphael clutched his arm, tears streaming down his face. Here's how this is going to work, MC Menor said, his voice carrying an authority that none of them had heard before. You're going to leave me alone. You're going to leave everyone else alone too, because if I hear about you bullying anyone at all, I'll find you, and next time I won't be so gentle. He walked over to the trash bin and began pulling out his belongings. The books were dirty but salvageable. His notebooks were stained but readable. And there, near the bottom, was his grandfather's photo. He wiped it clean with his shirt and tucked it safely into his pocket. You're also going to spread the word, MC Menor continued as he repacked his backpack. Tell everyone what happened here. Tell them that the quiet new kid isn't as helpless as he looks. Tell them that some people are better left alone. Raphael was still clutching his arm, his face pale with pain and shock. You're crazy, he whispered. You could have killed us. MC Menor looked at him with cold eyes. If I wanted to kill you, Raphael, you'd be dead. What I did was give you a lesson in humility. Whether you learn from it or not is up to you. He shouldered his backpack and started walking toward the exit. But he paused at the end of the hallway and looked back. Oh, and Raphael? He called out. If you're thinking about getting revenge, or bringing your friends, or telling the teachers some sob story about how the new kid attacked you for no reason, let me save you the trouble. I have 5 years of Sambo training, and what you just experienced was me being nice. Push me again, and you'll discover what I'm like when I'm not in a good mood. With that, he walked away, leaving the 3 bullies to contemplate their new reality. Word of the hallway incident spread through the school like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone knew that the quiet new kid had single-handedly dismantled Raphael's crew. The details grew more elaborate with each telling, but the core truth remained. MC Menor du Grajau was not someone to be messed with. The change in how people treated him was immediate and dramatic. Students who had ignored him the day before now nodded respectfully when they passed him in the halls. Teachers, sensing the shift in dynamics, began calling on him in class and treating him like any other student rather than a potential problem. Raphael and his friends were notably absent for the rest of the week. When they finally returned, they were different people. Raphael's arm was in a sling, and all 3 of them went out of their way to avoid MC Menor. When they did encounter him, they looked away quickly, their former swagger replaced by nervous energy. The most telling moment came during lunch on Friday. MC Menor was sitting alone at a table in the corner, reading a book while he ate, when he noticed a commotion across the cafeteria. A group of older students was harassing a younger boy, taking his lunch money and laughing at his protests. MC Menor looked up from his book and caught Rafael's eye across the room. Rafael was sitting with Diego and Marcos, all of them watching the scene unfold. For a moment their eyes met, and MC Menor raised an eyebrow in silent question. Rafael's face went pale. He quickly stood up and walked over to the group of bullies. "Hey!" Rafael said, his voice shaky but determined. "Leave the kid alone." The older students turned to look at him with surprise. "Since when do you care about protecting the weak, Rafael?" Rafael glanced back at MC Menor, who was still watching. "Since now," he said firmly. "Pick on someone your own size." The confrontation ended without violence, but the message was clear. The old order was changing, and everyone knew why. Later that day, as MC Menor was walking to his last class, Rafael appeared beside him in the hallway. They walked in silence for a moment before Rafael spoke. "I wanted to thank you," he said quietly. MC Menor looked at him with surprise. "Thank me? For what?" "For not really hurting us," Rafael replied. "You could have. We both know you could have put us in the hospital. But you didn't." MC Menor considered this. "Violence should be a last resort," he said finally. "My grandfather taught me that. Sometimes you have to fight, but you should never enjoy it." Rafael nodded. "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man." "He was," MC Menor said, touching the photo in his pocket. "He taught me that strength isn't about hurting people, it's about protecting them." They reached MC Menor's classroom, and Rafael stopped. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'm sorry about everything, about your grandfather's photo, about the way we treated you. You didn't deserve any of that." MC Menor studied Rafael's face and saw genuine remorse there. "We all make mistakes," he said. "The important thing is learning from them." Rafael managed a small smile. "Maybe we could start over. I mean, if you want to." MC Menor extended his hand. "I'd like that." They shook hands, and MC Menor could see the relief in Rafael's eyes. It wasn't friendship, not yet, but it was a beginning. As the weeks passed, MC Menor settled into his new school with an ease he had never experienced before. His reputation as someone not to be crossed had spread throughout the student body, but more importantly, word had gotten out about his intervention in the cafeteria incident. Students began to see him not as a threat, but as a protector. He found himself with an unexpected group of friends, the kids who had been targets before, the ones who had been pushed around and ignored. They gravitated toward him, not because they feared him, but because they knew he understood what it felt like to be powerless. MC Menor never forgot the lesson his grandfather had taught him about the responsibility that came with strength. He used his reputation carefully, never starting fights, but always ready to finish them. The bullies at Colegio Estadual Dom Pedro II learned to find other ways to spend their time. One afternoon, as he was walking home from school, MC Menor's phone buzzed with a text from his mother. She had gotten a promotion at work, and they wouldn't have to move again. For the first time in years, he would be able to finish a school year in the same place he started it. He smiled and looked back at the school building. It had been a rough beginning, but he had found his place here. He had learned that sometimes you have to fight for respect. But more importantly, he had learned that true strength came from knowing when to fight and when to show mercy. His grandfather would have been proud. As he walked home, MC Menor reflected on how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. He had gone from being the scared new kid to someone who commanded respect throughout the school. But the most important change wasn't in how others saw him. It was in how he saw himself. He was no longer running from who he was. He was MC Menor do Grajaú, grandson of a soldier, student of Sambo, protector of the weak. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. The bullies had made a big mistake when they threw his bag in the trash. They had awakened something in him that had been sleeping, something his grandfather had planted years ago with patient training and quiet wisdom. They had expected to find an easy victim, but instead they had discovered an unstoppable fighter. And in learning that lesson, they had inadvertently given MC Menor the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that he never had to be a victim again. The story of the new kid who fought back became legend at Colegio Estadual Dom Pedro II. But for MC Menor, it was just the beginning of a new chapter in his life. A chapter where he no longer had to hide who he was or apologize for his strength. He was home.